Hey, Olivia,
Hey,
would you still do a podcast with me if I was just a floating head?
of course.
Okay, great, because I'm a floating head now, and welcome back to another episode of another Picture Show podcast. My name is Madeline, the floating head.
I'm Olivia, a full human body. Okay, so Madeline's wrapped in a beige blanket and it matches her room, so she does look like a floating head. Anyways, we're here to do
One of these days we'll put up videos and you will see my floating headness.
Yeah, exactly.
Until then,
we're
you
here
just have
to
to imagine
do
it.
some more film reviews.
Yay!
For those who stop interrupting me, Madeline.
A floating head with no social awareness.
For those who are new here, Madeline has not seen the movies that we're going to review. So I tell her what we're going to watch, and then we take a short 15-second break to watch the movie and then come back and give our hot takes and big thoughts and have a great time.
We actually only watch the first 15 seconds of every movie.
Yeah.
And then we come back and review it.
It's enough to give us a lot of heated opinions. So yeah. All right. So this week, I thought we would continue. I know I should just stop making plans because we never stick to them, because we'll either disappear for 3 months or just decide we don't want to watch a certain movie. So in a previous episode, I said we were just going to watch horror movies for spooky season, but that didn't happen. So I'm just picking a movie that gives me fall vibes because we're still in fall.
Fall. But
and also it's a movie that I know, Madeline, you have seen.
Ooh.
And we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about it. So this week we're gonna watch Clue.
Ooh! Oh my god, another Tim Curry movie! Oh my god, I love Tim Curry so much.
A little treat for Madeline.
Yay! I've been a brave little girl. I get rewarded with the curry. Yeah.
All right. So what do you have to say about Clue before we go watch it?
Such a good movie. It's just a quintessential Tim Curry movie, and he's so good in it. And the whole movie's great because just the way they do, the way they do the whole thing's fantastic. Madeleine McCann's in it, my namesake. Not really. I was named after her name, but whatever. I choose my namesake. It's just all around a good time, and it's a movie that we, as Olivia and I, as teenagers with our other friends, would watch and take many quotes from and use them in our everyday lives. So I'm very excited.
Sweet. Likewise. Let's not waste any time. Let's just go watch it and come back.
Go watch the first 15 seconds and come back.
We've seen it enough. We don't need to watch the whole thing. All right. So we'll be back with our review of Clue in 3, 2, 1. And we're back.
Oh. I was consenting on my computer to being recorded. Hello, we are back.
Hi. So we just watched Clue from 1985.
It's crazy to think that 10 years had passed between Rocky Horror and Clue, because before we get into anything else, Tim Curry has not aged a day.
See, I was going to say the opposite. I felt like he was a completely different person. And well, he's playing a completely different character in this movie, but he looks very different. He looks older.
Looks different, but he still looks so youthful in Clue, and he's obviously youthful in Rocky Horror. So I just, you could have told me that he made Rocky Horror in 1975 and made Clue in 1976, and I would have been like, oh yeah, that totally tracks. He just wiped his makeup off and put on a suit, and then he went in to do Clue.
True. I mean, he looks the same in almost everything he does, so I guess that tracks.
He ages with grace.
All right, so before we get into to what we think of the movie, I'm going to give a quick rundown of the facts of Clue. We're trying to, I think we're back at it again. I'm trying to be a little more structured and come in
Damn.
with some actual notes and some actual things. We're doing it right.
The chaos was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. All right. So Clue is a 1985 American comedy mystery film based on the popular board game of the same name, Clue or Cluedo. It was directed by Jonathan Lynn, who collaborated on the script with John Landis and was produced by Deborah Hill. It stars the ensemble cast of Eileen Brennan, Tim Curry, Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, Martin Mull, and Leslie Ann Warren. The plot of Clue is as follows. 6 guests are anonymously invited to a strange mansion for dinner, but after their host is killed, they must cooperate with the staff to identify the murderer as the bodies pile up.
I hadn't seen Clue in a long time prior to this assignment, and it is just more brilliant than I remember it being.
Yeah.
In every way. God, it was just so funny. It's just such, and it's like, you think about it, you're like, who the hell would have made a movie based on a board game? Like, what's next? Monopoly?
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, it's a story. Like, the whole game of Clue is a story. You're trying to figure out who the killer is. So of course it like writes itself basically.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to add some like dialogue and some, a little bit of continuity, and then you have like a film or whatever, or a script. But man, like, words are escaping me. Words cannot describe how wonderful I think this movie is. Just like, I think it's just like all of it is like my kind of comedy.
Yeah.
So I was just really just like, I was just jiving the whole time. I was just having a fan-fucking-tastic time watching Clue. And I watched it twice before we sat down to record. So I drank up every bit of detail, and so good.
It is quite delightful. I feel like that's like the best way to describe it, is just it's a delightful film. It's witty all the way through. There's jokes that like I still miss, like that every time I watch it I like pick up on something else, gets funnier and funnier every time. And like as I age, it gets funnier because I like understand the layers that are going on too. It's like, it's parody, it's commentary on certain things. It's also just like people having fun making a really like weird movie.
Right.
It was very ambitious in certain ways that we'll get into, but yeah, it's just a very delightful movie, enjoyable movie that we both enjoy, or it's safe to say that we both enjoy.
Yes, I enjoyed it very much.
So do you want to kind of go through your synopsis of what happens in Clue, and then I'll kind of fill in some fun facts as we go? I feel like that's how we work best.
Of course. So Clue, it starts as a dark and stormy night. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? And it's set in New England. You don't know where, but you assume Massachusetts, because like that is the only New England state. Come for me, New Englanders. And it's set in this big ass mansion. Tim Curry rolls up. He, chains up some dogs because they're being feisty, and he goes inside. He's making sure that dinner's prepared. You don't really know who he is though at first. You're like, does he own the place? Like, because he seems to know it pretty well. Like, who, like, he just walks in, takes off his coat, he knows what's up, goes in, he checks in on the maid, or she's cleaning like the cleanest glass on the planet. She's like extra cleaning it, and I'm like, how much cleaner can this glass get? Like, do you need to see into the future, Yvette? Like, what's going on? Because spoiler alert, you get murdered. Anyway, so he checks in with her. He's like, hey, make sure everything's ready for our guests. And she's like, okay, I'm cleaning this one glass. I have like 30 more years before it's done. Goes into the kitchen, checks in on the cook. Then guests arrive, and they're all under the pseudonym. They don't know why they're there. Colonel Mustard shows up first. He's obviously got the hots for Yvette. Then Madeline Kahn, my favorite person, she shows up. She is Mrs. White, but she's dressed in all black, which I love. She shows up. She and Yvette know each other. like they look at each other and they just both bristle, and you're just like, ooh, some history there. And you can see it, and that's really, you can see it in the instant. And I mean, Tim Curry didn't have to call it out, but he definitely does to make it more awkward, because that's just so funny. And then I forget the order in which the rest of the guests show up, but I believe Miss Scarlet and Professor Plum were the last to arrive. They don't know why they're there. They know they're all under pseudonyms. So they roll up to the dining room, dinner's ready, and they sit down, and there's this empty chair. And they're like, well, who's that for? Is that for our host? It's for Mr. Body. So then Mr. Body shows up, they all adjourn, and they find out that all of them, what they have in common is they're being blackmailed by the same person. And they go around kind of revealing some details about like why everybody's being blackmailed. Come to Mr. Body, he's the one allegedly blackmailing them. Lights go out. After Mr. Body was like, well, why don't we kill Wadsworth? He's the only one here who like has some sort of like beef with the situation. And like wants to like, you know, rock the boat, so to speak. So that he's like, if y'all kill Wadsworth, we can just move on with our lives. We can leave before the police arrive. We're good to go. Lights go out. Shot. Scream. Lights come on. Mr. Body's dead. So then they all have to figure out who killed Mr. Body. And then they find the cook dead. And it's just like, who the hell killed the cook? How did they escape? And then just from there, it's just so much chaos. Like, it's so hard to explain in a short amount of time. Like, I could spend an hour literally just like going like scene by scene, being like, and then this happened, and then this happened.
And then this joke happened, and then this joke happened.
And then this joke happened. And then, you know, Miss Scarlet said this. But ultimately, they are all sort of connected somehow. Towards the end, you kind of find out, beyond the fact that they're being blackmailed, they're all from Washington, D.C. And they all have a connection to like a similar circle of politics. And it's 1954. So it's implied that this is all about like communism and like the Cold War. Mm-hmm. But there are three endings. There are two possible endings. And then there's a third ending. And the third ending that they show is what actually happens. So the first ending, they imply, and the there's a bunch of bodies. So like 6 people die total. It's Mr. Body, the chef. There's a motorist who shows up. His car broke down and he shows up to get help and somebody kills him. Then a policeman shows up. He gets killed. And then somebody kills Yvette. And then somebody kills the singing telegram girl who just randomly shows up like during there's a power outage, and like this girl randomly shows up and she's like, I am a singing telegram, bang, dead. Hilarious. Literally watched that scene 3 times before continuing. And so it's kind of implied like each person who was killed was connected to one of the guests. So they try and figure out like who killed who for what reason, but they're all connected. And then all the guests are connected. So it's like really anybody could kill this person this victim for any reason, even though they're not directly connected to them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so at the end, the person who was the killer in the first ending was Miss Scarlet. And she killed everybody because she was in the business she runs secrets. She's in the business of secrets, but her front is that she is a madam and she runs like a brothel basically in DC for high-end clients like politicians and stuff like that.
Including Colonel Mustard.
Yes. High-end politicians and advisors and military guys, you name it, she gets somebody to bone them.
She's basically Littlefinger.
Yeah. And so she's found to be the killer, then she gets arrested, and the same like sequence happens, like the FBI busts in and like arrests, you know, the killer and like runs through, and the same guy is the chief and he comes in. The second one, it was Mrs. Peacock was the killer, and I forget what her motive was. I'm sure it was like similar. She just wanted to like preserve herself, and so she killed everyone.
Know. I think she was just bored.
Yeah, same.
I honestly don't remember why, like what her motivation was. It was kind of one of the weaker endings.
Yeah. But what really happened was everybody except Mr. Green killed someone else. Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Green was an undercover FBI agent the whole time. And the running joke was the running like bit was that he was a homosexual, and in the 50s that was literally a reason to be fired from your job and lose
It was
like your way of
illegal.
life. Yes, it was illegal. So the running thing was like he was a homosexual and he worked in the State Department, and that was why he was being blackmailed, is like, you know, if it got out, he'd lose his clearance and then he would have no job. So then at the very end, he turns out he's an undercover FBI agent, and the very last line is just so iconic. He's like, "I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife," and it's just brilliant. So, as everybody has watched the movie as per the assignment, I'm sure I did a very horrible job recapping, but that is what happens in the movie.
No, I thought you did a great job. It was very succinct. I think you got all the main points. And I think you described the overall conflict between the characters pretty well.
Oh, thank you.
Because I've seen this movie like 5 times, and I still like have a hard time following like what exactly everyone's deal is.
Right.
But I guess we could go through that now. So we have Mrs. White, played by the lovely Madeline Kahn. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
At least. But her motivation is she has killed multiple husbands, allegedly. She's kind of like a little black widow.
No, not the cook.
She killed Yvette in the
killed Yvette because Yvette had an affair with her most recent husband, which is, you assume, why she killed her husband.
Yeah.
And he was a nuclear physicist, so he had connections with like a lot of the people in Washington, so that's why.
Yep, nuclear physicist, communism, Red Scare, all that jazz. I just loved like all of her lines about her husbands, like, oh, what
does your husband do for a living? He lies on his back mostly.
He lies on his back all day. Or the one where she's talking to Tim Curry about her husband being an illusionist, and like, oh, but he disappeared. Well, he wasn't a very good illusionist.
He never reappeared. Yeah, she was interesting. I think like her shining moment, of course, was like when the final ending, when they're talking about who killed who and why. They figure out that, you know, Mrs. White killed Yvette because she had the affair with her husband, and she's like, I hate her so much. And she's just like having a breakdown, like, flames on the side of my face. And they're like, okay, that's enough. Like,
did you know that's like the only improvised line in the entire movie?
That's awesome and sad at the same time, because that means the script was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish some of them like threw in some more one-liners, but of course she's amazing, so it would be most, if not all, people named Madeline are fantastic, so I honestly expect no less, that she got the one brilliant one-liner in there.
Originally, Mrs. White's character wasn't supposed to have that many lines, but the director and the writer John Landis saw her in one of her other movies and like thought she was brilliant, of course, and was like, okay, so we need to have more of like her in this. So he wrote more for her into the movie, and I think it definitely paid off. And I'm also really happy that the flames made it into the movie too, because when the movie was first released, it was released with 3 separate endings. So like it didn't play like it plays now when we watch it. It's like, this is what could have happened, but this is what's really happened. It like each ending was, it's like, depending on which theater you went to, like you only saw one ending.
That's cool.
And so the flames part was only in the 3rd ending. So if you didn't see the 3rd ending, then you didn't get to see that part. And that's partially why I think the movie bombed when it first came out, because the gimmick of the 3 endings like didn't really land for critics, and because it was a little confusing for audiences.
See, if this movie came out today, it would have been like, if some movie did the same concept today, I feel like it would have been like A ***, A++, 200 out of 10, because the internet loves shit like that. Like, you know, like when, as long as it's done well, like if it was done like Clue, like say Clue didn't come out in 1985, it came out today, and it was the exact same movie, and they, randomized like what theater got what ending, the internet would be all like, oh my God, that's so cool. Then like, there'd be fucking TikTok, like mashup edits of like the different endings and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it didn't land because people, people probably couldn't it's not like communication was like not a thing back then, but you know what I mean? Like it wasn't as easy for people to be on Twitter and be like, oh, I went to this theater and like, I can't believe Miss Scarlet did it. And it's like, no, I saw somebody else tweets like, no, I saw that it was all 6 of them did it. And then somebody else is like, no, Mrs. fucking Peacock did it. And then it's like a whole frenzy of conversation, and it winds up the media, social media, like fucking hamster wheel, and then sparks fly. And that's how more attention gets to the movie because people are talking about it. Whereas in the 80s, where there wasn't internet and there wasn't Twitter, it's not like you can send like a fucking letter and be like, aha, dear sir, the year of our Lord 1985, I went to see Cluedo, and wouldn't you know it, Mrs. Scarlet did it. And then, Josiah's gonna write back like, no, dear friend, you must be mistaken. I went to see the same Cluedo film. Love Tim Curry. 200 out of 10. However, you are mistaken. It was all 6 of them. And then Grandma's like, no, add in at the end, darling, that it was actually Mrs. Peacock who did it. They didn't fucking do that shit. So no wonder it didn't land. People were confused.
I mean, yeah, I think part of it is people, I mean, if you think about it, like if you watch just like one of the endings, I feel like the movie does feel kind of short. Like if it were to end right after Miss Scarlet, like the reveal that Miss Scarlet did it, then it would feel kind of abrupt. But because it has that like extra 10 minutes or whatever of the last 2 endings, it feels kind of more rounded and more like loyal to the board game, because there's like built like a bunch of different endings that you could have with the board game. Like, each time you play is a different outcome. So whenever you watch the movie, it feels like it's very much tied to the board game itself, and it's more fun. You're like, oh, so the fun of this murder mystery is like the whole time you're trying to figure out who did it, and then at the end it gives us a bunch of different options. But when they only give you one option, it kind of feels like confusing. And short.
With all 3 endings, it's only 97 minutes. It's not a very long movie.
No.
It's the perfect feature length. It is an hour and 37 minutes.
But yeah, so when it came out, it didn't do very well because the 3 endings gimmick didn't quite land with critics and audiences. And also critics just didn't think it was funny.
They're wrong.
I think we can objectively say that that's incorrect, and they just had no taste. But I have like 2 quotes from Roger Ebert at the time.
Who's he? A critic?
He's a very, very famous film critic.
Boo.
But he's
kind of Robert.
He reminds me of like the Angry Muppets, like just kind of just being rude for no reason. It's kind of how I feel about him. Just a contrarian for the sake of being that way. But so here's the first quote about Clue. The way Paramount is handling its multiple endings is ingenious. They're playing each of the endings in a third of the theaters where the movie is booked. If this were a better movie, that might mean you'd have to drive all over town to buy 3 tickets and see all the endings. With Clue, though, one ending is more than enough.
Boo! Robert, hiss! You fucking suck.
A little rough. All right, so then the second one is about the jokes and how it's not funny. Since none of these events have the slightest significance, the filmmakers have attempted to make Clue into a screwball comedy with lots of throwaway gags and one-liners. Some of these moments of comedy are funny, most are not. The cast looks promising. Familiar faces include Martin Mull, Leslie Ann Warren, Madeline Kahn, and the wonderfully bouncy Colleen Camp, who played Yvette. But the screenplay is so very, very thin that they spend most of their time looking frustrated, as if they'd just been cut off right before they were about to say something interesting.
I don't agree.
I feel like we just
don't
didn't watch the
agree.
same movie, you know?
I know. I'm like, who peed in your Wheaties?
They're just like, it's not funny. There's not enough wit. It's not clever at all. But like I watch it, I'm like, it's so full of wit that like I
Yeah.
don't understand how you couldn't see that.
No, I agree. I'm like, I think, and like, I'm a top tier comedian, so I 100% believe that it is very funny, and I don't have an immature sense of humor whatsoever. So
listeners, you need to take her opinion as truth. So
yeah, as gospel bitches.
Yeah.
Study up. We're going to Sunday school. Lesson 1, Clue.
Clue is
no,
funny.
It's just like,
damn it. Amen.
Hallelujah. I think it's just like, you know, sex jokes are funny. Like, they're funny as long as they're like in good taste. Like, they're, you know, nobody in this movie was making like sexual assault jokes, although like, you know, Mr. Body grabbing Yvette's ass was like, you know, cringy as fuck, but like, whatever, it is what, like, I can't
immediately. So
yeah. It's just, he's a scumbag, and so scumbags do scumbaggish things. But, you know, sex jokes are funny. All the jokes they made were funny and weren't like offensive to like any audience in particular. Like, they were just like they were literally like situational comedy, like literally situational comedy. Like, it is people making jokes about the situation that they are in. Yeah, so all those critics were wrong, objectively incorrect, and I will hear no Clue slander. Thank you very much.
All right, that was a long tangent. We were talking about Mrs. White.
You're right. I was like, who are we on again?
No, it was both of us. We had a lot to say. She kind of opened the floodgates for us. But Madeline Kahn is brilliant, and I think despite there not being a lot of improvising when it came to the dialogue, I think that the entire cast was able to really like do their own thing with like how they did just random things outside of their dialogue, if that makes sense. Like they kind of were able to make weird noises or like react in like weird ways that just really solidified their characters. Like, for example, Mrs. White. I don't know specifically when in the movie this is, but Mr. Green like comes up to Mrs. White and is saying something, and then she just goes, ah! Like, just like does a weird noise. And I don't think that was in the script, but she just like did that. I think it's just an example of like the actors having fun with their characters despite having to stick to like the written lines. Does that make sense? So the comedy is there, not just in the dialogue. It's like everything that they're doing. It's great.
It's like very much physical comedy as well as like the script, because like Tim Curry running around, like Mr. Green slapping Mrs. Peacock, and like when the lights go, when he's doing the grand reveal of like who did it, like the lights go out and then turn back on, and he's like face down on the ground. They're like, oh my god, he gets back up. It's just like, and they all like how he kind of like forces them to play along in his reenactment. Like, it's just, you know, what was really funny that I didn't remember being really funny was Mrs. Peacock. Like, she was fucking hilarious.
No, she's amazing. Her faces,
like, no wonder her name is first in the credits. Like, she's like, I think she was a really, really, really big actress at the time.
Eileen Brennan.
Yeah.
She actually had just gotten out of like a 6-week stay at a rehab facility because she was addicted to painkillers because she had been in a car accident like 2 years previous.
Oh, right.
And so she had just got out of rehab, and this was the first project that she did after getting out. And so I guess like she was really struggling through the making of this movie, but I think she did a great
it doesn't show. It looks like, I was gonna say maybe she just had all this pent up like energy to like do acting after her stint in rehab that she went balls to the wall. But you know, what you said is probably more true. but she masked it very well.
But okay, so what was Mrs. Peacock's motivation? Like she was a politician's wife, right?
Yes.
And
And she murders every single person in this ending. She murders the cook, right? Because the cook used to be her cook. And then she murders everyone else because she's terrified Mr. Body may have passed on information because she took bribes from foreign powers. That's what it was. I was throwing the Russians in for no reason. And then that's the ending where they sing for she's a jolly good fellow. Oh my god, that was so
the kingdom of
funny.
heaven is at hand. Dun, 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 dun.
the fucking floodlights turning on. It's just like, did they really spend like the 45 minutes of all of them running around the house screaming to set up floodlights outside? And like
they kept looking through the window. They're still going. You got time.
Yeah.
There's a plug over
killed
here.
A fifth person. Don't worry, we're almost there.
They didn't see someone shoot the singing telegram girl.
Right? Yeah, they're like, oh, we could intervene.
Oh shit, she's dead. Keep going, boys. Set up these lights.
Oh damn, I was hoping to be done in time to intervene before she got to the house. The other thing is like, that's funny. I know we can have to get back on track in a second, but like thinking about that, because like in the first two endings, it's Tim Curry, so Wadsworth, he is supposed to be like in cahoots with the FBI and the police. Like he's supposed to be an FBI informant and everything. And so it's the idea that he invites all these people with the intent of them being murdered, like, and then it's like, you're supposed to be a police informant, but you're getting all these people killed off. I don't think so, Home Slice. Because he's like, oh, it should never have gotten this far. And I'm like, don't you think you would have somebody else like as backup outside to stop people from getting killed? But you know,
dogs are useless.
Right?
I guess we can talk about Tim Curry next.
Sure.
He's brilliant. He's
17,000 out of 10. Yeah. Literally cannot be stopped. He is a force to be reckoned with.
He plays Wadsworth, the butler.
Yes.
I don't know. He just seems like he's having the best time doing this role. And apparently it's one of his favorite, if not the favorite, film he's ever done. So that's good to know.
It's a good one. Like it's definitely, this movie is definitely up there with Rocky Horror as far as my favorites. Like it's just chef's kiss.
So fun fact about the casting of Wadsworth. Originally, it wasn't supposed to be Tim Curry. Okay, so their first choice was a performer named Leonard Rossiter. He was I believe, a British performer. I don't know what he was from. But he unfortunately died before the production of Clue.
Oh, that's sad.
So he was backstage at a play that he was in called Loot, and then he just died. I don't know. So that's really unfortunate. He wasn't able to be Wadsworth.
Right. Damn.
And their second choice was actually Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean.
Honestly, that also would have been really good.
No, I know. It was like right up his alley. He would be a very good butler. But he was a very like, I mean, you know this. He was like really big in the UK from like all of his projects over there, like Blackadder and other
I was gonna
kind
say,
of like
he would have been doing Blackadder at the time.
Yeah. Situational comedies. And he has that just like very stiff, like dry sense of humor. So he would have been a great Wadsworth, but unfortunately, American audiences would have no idea who he is and therefore is not marketable. So they're like, we don't know who the fuck that is. So he can't play Wadsworth.
Well, they find out who he is, though, when fucking Johnny English comes out like almost 2 decades later.
Fucking Johnny English. Amazing. Way to pull that out of...
Johnny English stan. Yeah. I stan the English king that is Johnny.
That is a blast from the past, for sure.
It lives in my subconscious full time.
We're Rowan Atkinson fans, too, so...
Yeah, oh yeah. He's like, it's like, my hierarchy of people I would take a bullet for is Tim Curry, Colin Firth, almost on the exact same level, and then Rowan Atkinson.
I don't know if he's in my top 3, but I definitely appreciate him.
Well, until somebody comes up and reminds me of somebody who should be in my top 3, he's taking that place.
Fair enough. So he didn't get the role. So they were like, hey, remember that guy from like that really amazing cult classic film that bombed and then got really popular? We should cast him in this movie and do the exact same thing. Bomb and then become really popular. So they did, and they cast Tim Curry. And I think it worked out for everyone involved.
Except maybe Rowan Atkinson, because I feel like he really could have benefited from like debuting his in the American film scene. But
I mean, he went on to do like Lion King and Johnny English and
Johnny
Mr.
English
Bean.
first. Lion King, no one gave a fuck.
Whatever. I think he's fine.
Oh no, I love
think
Rowan
he's
Atkinson. I'm just saying, like, Johnny English is king.
Should we do Johnny English on the podcast?
I don't know if I don't know. Do we have 7 hours to sit and talk about it? I don't know.
I don't think I've seen it since I was like 10 years old. So
That's a mistake, man.
anyways, so do we have anything else to say about Wadsworth and Tim Curry's performance?
Oh, that he does turn out to be the blackmailer in the real ending, and
True.
Mr. Green kills him. I don't think
we
I
didn't even talk
explained
about
that.
like his motivation.
Yeah, he was the one blackmailing everybody, and he wanted all of his spies that were feeding him the blackmail information dead. So he figured the easiest way to do that is to have the people he's blackmailing kill the people who tipped him off without them knowing he was in fact the person blackmailing, but also there to facilitate that everybody he needed dead was dead.
Yeah. True. But he's only the blackmailer in the last ending. In the other
Correct.
2 endings, he's still just the butler, whose wife was being. Oh, did she die?
She committed suicide.
Oh, right. She committed suicide because she was being blackmailed about her socialist friends.
My friends who are socialists.
My wife, she was friends with socialists. She starts weeping. Everyone's like, clutches their pearls.
That's disgusting. I think Mrs. Peacock says that. She's like, that's disgusting.
Well, everyone makes mistakes. Like one of my favorite lines. There was actually supposed to be a 4th ending that they did film, but it didn't end up anywhere because they thought it was bad. And in the 4th ending, Wadsworth is the murderer, and he basically kills everybody. The what was it? The scotch or the brandy was poisoned, and so they all die. And then he tries to escape, but then is attacked by the Doberman and is arrested.
That is so funny. I'm glad that wasn't the ending though. Yeah, that would have been kind of like a rip off of like all of them just like collapse. Then he's like toodaloo, and then
it sounds wild on paper. Like reading it, I'm just like, man, it would be interesting to see that ending, but I do think it kind of is a bit too much.
Oh, I'd love to get my hands on a copy of the forbidden ending, but I'm glad it didn't make it into the real movie final cut.
All right, so then we have Miss Scarlet. Like you said, Miss Scarlet she basically is like the head of a brothel essentially in Washington D.C. for high-end clients like politicians and people of that nature, and she's in the business of secrets. Got the very SES's breathy
secrets. Super secrety secrets.
And she is the killer in the first. I'm just gonna move on.
Olivia's like, and I'm uncomfortable moving on.
She is the killer in the first ending. She just. What can you explain why she killed them?
So she killed Yvette and the cop because they worked for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for kind of a similar reason she killed everybody else is that she didn't want kind of like the secrets getting away from her. Like she didn't want them running to like blab to anyone else. Yeah. That's why she killed him.
Nice. Anyways, she was played by Leslie Ann Warren, who did a fantastic job, I believe.
Yes. Did anyone else, when they first saw this movie years ago, think she was Susan Sarandon?
No.
I was watching it and my mom came in and she was like, "Is that Susan Sarandon?" And I was like, "No," but they do look very similar, like similar build,
Mhm.
similar face structure.
Mhm.
But no, it was not. It was Leslie Ann Warren, and she's beautiful and looked hot in that dress and was all the nice things.
There's a lot of boobs in this movie.
A
A lot of boobs.
lot of titty pop pop.
Yeah. Sure. So originally, Miss Scarlet was supposed to be played by Carrie Fisher.
Oh.
And she was cast and everything was ready to go. Obviously, she was a very big name and would have brought a lot of popularity to the movie, a lot of like notoriety to the movie, I guess. But unfortunately, she had to go to rehab for a cocaine addiction. And she talked to the filmmakers and was like, "Hey, so like what if we did this cool little plan of mine where I film during the day and then I just go to rehab at night?" And they were basically like, "Nah." So they recast her. I think originally they went up like they asked like 3 different people, and the first 3 people that they asked were like, "Oh sure, like yeah, we can do that." But it turns out the 3 people they asked were like producers who also were in like a cocaine circle with Carrie Fisher, allegedly. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but it was kind of like oh, so you guys are all just kind of like cocaine friends, drug friends, and
this would have been
Yeah.
maybe a bad situation for you who is trying to get clean.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
So they recast Leslie Ann Warren instead.
She did a great job. So I mean, it's unfortunate, that Carrie had to go through that, but the film did not suffer because of it.
Yeah, I think Carrie Fisher would have done Miss Scarlet very well.
Agreed.
I think that she would have brought the same like sexiness that Leslie Ann Warren did, but maybe with a little more like edge. And then we have Professor Plum, who was played by Christopher Lloyd,
aka Doc Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I literally figured that out like later than I should have. Like it was like 3/4 of the way through the movie. I was like, is he Doc Brown?
And just got out of a DeLorean at the beginning of the movie, and like you didn't really put those two together.
Like, brushes down his like crazy ass hair.
It throws off his lab coat into the woods. Yeah, that came out around the same time, 1985. I feel like his character is like very subdued in the movie.
I agree. Considering like the zaniness he brings to Doc Brown.
Frankly, I think all of the male characters are pretty subdued outside of Tim Curry.
Right.
Like Professor Plum.
I think Mr. Green was my favorite of the 3 men though.
Yeah. No, I agree. So what is Professor Plum's motivation?
So I have to think, because he's only revealed as a killer in the final ending when all of them kill somebody. He doesn't kill Yvette, so I just need to run through who killed everybody. So
he killed the telegram. No,
he killed Mr. Body.
Oh, right.
He killed Mr. Body. And I believe he killed Mr. Body because he just wanted the blackmail to stop.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. And he knew. So the thing with him was he knew that he had missed because he had the gun when they open all the boxes with the weapons in them. He had the revolver. So somebody shuts the lights out. He shoots, but he misses Mr. Body. But Mr. Body pretended to be dead because he knew, because the bullet had like grazed his ear or something like that. So he knew somebody was trying to kill him. So he figured it'd be easier to avoid actually dying if he just played dead. So he pretends to be dead. And then since Professor Plum was a medical doctor, he checked his pulse, knew he was alive, but said he was dead so he could go back and kill him later. And that's what he did in the final ending. So he did it because he wanted the madness and like the blackmailing to stop.
And he worked for the UN.
Yeah, so he worked for the UN as like an advisor for the WHO. and he had lost his medical license as like a practicing psychologist or psychiatrist, whichever, because he slept with one of his patients who happened to be the singing telegram girl later.
There you have it, folks. That's Professor Plum. Not Professor Green, Professor Plum. And then we have Colonel Mustard. Colonel Mustard was played by Martin Mull, who again was another character actor. He was in like a few soap operas before this. He's also very like subdued in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in past watches, I kind of like forgot about him a lot of times, but this time around I was like, no, he's actually like pretty funny. Like he's got some
good
lines, some good ones.
And he's
like,
also like kind of dumb, like he's kind of slow on the uptake. So like they had like a sort of who's on first conversation where it's like, is there anyone else in the building? And he's like, no. And he's like, yes, no. And they go back and forth for like literally 3 minutes, just try to solve whether or not anybody else is in the house.
You're trying to make me look stupid? You don't need my help with that. That's
no,
right.
I don't.
That's right.
Yeah. And then he was a client of Miss Scarlett's.
Yes.
And he was having his tryst with Yvette, who worked for Miss Scarlett. And those were the photo negatives of him doing the nasty bumping uglies with Yvette. In Miss Scarlett's ending, she was going to, I think in all of the endings, actually, the negatives were going to be sent to his mother, who is actually alive, and that he made his money selling airplane parts to foreign powers during the war. And the motorist who broke down on the highway and came to call for help, he had worked with him and knew about his scandalous ways. And that's why in the final ending, Colonel Mustard killed the motorist.
Interesting. I don't know why I'm saying
quick recap for everyone.
I never watched the movie. That sounds.
I know. I'm like, did you watch this? Like, you seem really interested.
Huh? Really? Yeah.
Oh.
And then we have Mr. Green, played by Michael McKean, who up until this point, another character actor, best known. Well, actually, I think he was like one of the bigger names at the time. Besides Tim Curry, it was like Tim Curry and Michael McKean were like the two most well-known names. He was in a sitcom that was a spinoff of Happy Days called Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, yeah, I heard Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, he was kind of one of the like side, like goofy guy characters. Yeah, so he was pretty well known from that, and obviously he's been in a million different things since then. But
of course, he's a very recognizable face. Like,
oh yeah,
you might not be able to place where you like the title of like what he's been in, but you're like, I've seen this guy in something, and then you go to his IMDb and it's just like.
What was his motivation? Why was he there?
You just want me to say it again so you can bring up the lavender scare. So, buckle up, bitches.
Why are you saying that like it's a bad thing? Like I need a segue.
you just want to use me for your content. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so to Mr. Green, he arrives under the guise that he is a State Department employee, and that he because it's set in 1954, homosexuality is illegal and people are stupid. He is a gay man, and he admits this. He's like, yeah, this is why I'm here, because at the time, as we previously discussed, being gay would have been like a security violation for dumb reasons. So therefore, if the government had found out that he was gay, he would have been removed from his position and possibly persecuted, like criminally. But I don't know about. You would have to enlighten me on those details about whether or not he'd like go to jail or something if they found out he was gay. So that's why he was there. It's because he was allegedly being blackmailed for being a gay man working for the government, which turns out to be incorrect at the end.
Well, that's debatable. I'll give the like full definition of it. It's the Lavender Scare was a period in the 1950s and 60s where there was an intense effort to root out LGBTQ civil servants with access to sensitive information in government because it was believed they were more susceptible to manipulation and corruption. I'd like to think that because the Lavender Scare was going on, and because at the end all of his fellow state like civil servants come running in, the FBI and all of his coworkers come running in, he's kind of showing off, being like, I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
Like he was
kinda,
undercover, but he was himself, and then he has to go back undercover when he returns to his real life. Ooh, I like that. Okay,
like it's
I'm
still kind of he's covering up his true identity, even
he's
though
still playing the game.
Yeah, that's my read. I'd like to think that, because I don't like to think about the opposite of it being like
it was a ruse the whole time.
Yeah, because then I don't know, the gayness of the movie feels like a punchline,
Right. I agree.
And I don't want to think of it that way, or
Okay.
watch the movie with that lens. So in my mind, maybe maybe there's room to critique it for that, and we can, if you'd like to. But in my interpretation, I'd like to think that he's still acting under the pretenses of the Lavender Scare. So that's my read on Mr. Green and him being gay.
Right. Okay. No, I like that. No, I like it too, because it does make it more like, I don't want to say quaint, but like it's more like you're almost more at peace, like in a way, knowing that, like, in a sad way, like he's back to like, living a lie, but at the same time, like he is like still like fighting the man, so to speak. Like he's still working his government job, and he's still, himself. Yeah, I was gonna critique that, like the whole like I'm gay, no I'm not, like whole thing. I was gonna say, like, it did, and I agree, like I did feel kind of like a punchline at the very end, like if you choose to interpret it that way, where it's like, oh, he
I'm not gay, just kidding, guys, it's okay to like me.
Yeah, exactly,
like I'm not gay, so it's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually a likable character because
I
I'm
actually
didn't
straight. Do anything wrong. I'm not gay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I was gonna say, like, yeah, I didn't like that so much that like he had to be like a straight character like the whole time or whatever, like a straight man the whole time. So I am leaning towards agreeing with your interpretation and saying, yeah, he just went back under a different disguise, so to speak, towards the end
to
of the
blend
movie.
in with his fellow FBI state people. Also, like, what straight man after, I mean, I guess they do say ridiculous things all the time, but what just like straight man after doing his job, getting a bunch of people arrested and seeing 6 people murdered,
is like, you know what I'm gonna do?
Proclaims, I'm gonna go home,
sex with a vagina. Like,
I'm going to have vaginal sex tonight with my female wife.
my woman wife and I are going to put our penis and vagina together, and I believe that's how it works. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no.
Did I say that right, boys? All right, I'm out.
Am I right, fellas? Like, good Lord. Yeah. It's interesting, like, the whole logic of, like, I guess the fucking 20th century and previous, like, just how, opinions like form, like beliefs form. It's like, I don't want to get too deep because it's like I could talk about this forever, but it's like, what leads you to believe? And I know it's probably like the, alleged like moral corruption of being homosexual that like led people to believe that they would like just roll over and hand over secrets to, the communists. But and the other sad thing is, like, I'm sure there are people alive who like, or either had parents who remember that, or like who remember it themselves, or had, family members who were alive during that time. And like, just, it's unfathomable sometimes, like, just to think about like the crazy ass shit that went down throughout the world. And that is kind of being like hinted at in a comedy movie, because at that point 1954 would have been like 21 years prior. So the people making the movie could very well have remembered like that shit actually happening.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, time to make it funny. And it's like, okay. And now it's
critics
like
are just dumb and don't understand layers,
right, yeah,
and context. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's like a fair critique to put on the I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife thing, because ultimately, like, if you're not reading into the movie and you're just taking it at face value, then it does come off as a punchline, and that's kind of what it's remembered as. Like, that's it comes across as a gay joke,
right, yeah.
I think it's fair to critique it and be like, maybe for the smart ones, it lands and it works and it's not offensive, but I don't know, not everything ages appropriately.
Oh yeah, we talked about that at length when we talked about Rocky Horror. Like there's just there are just some things that like we as mature, smart human adults can understand are not acceptable today to like say or to believe. But for those at the time, especially when it came out, who said and believed these things, it kind of like affirmed their beliefs. Now there's always been a challenge to like oppression in general, but nowadays especially I think it's easier to like recognize that like it's not that funny, like it's not really funny at all, but like just the way he like, I think it's just like, but it is like his charisma behind the line that is very funny, yeah. Especially if you look at it from the lens that you're looking at it, it's like haha, like I got one over them. Like I got one over the straight white man, you know what I mean? It's like, good for you. Like you go home and quote unquote sleep with your wife. Like tell your boyfriend I said hi.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very tongue in cheek. It feels very like lighthearted,
Agreed. So yeah, just
also his performance just like throughout the whole movie is like way more animated, and like he has a little bit more freedom, I think, than the other male actors, obviously outside like, Tim Curry, but
which is like a spicy kind of commentary in and of itself, whether or not they like wanted it to be that way or not. But it's like somebody who is like, because in the beginning he's like, I openly like admit that I'm like a gay man. He's like, he's I don't think he directly says he's proud of that, but like you can obviously tell that he is. Like he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, yeah, I'm just paying this like ransom so I can, or not ransom, this blackmail so I can keep my job. Like I'm not ashamed of who I am, basically. And so it's like interesting to me how like the one openly gay man, because like all the women, like they're animated in their own way, like they have their own like way of like expressing themselves throughout the movie. And the other two men, besides Tim Curry, like he's just wild, but like the other two male guests who are there, they're much more reserved, and like they're much more sexist and like gropey and weird. And like he's just out there like just living it up, just like like feeling all the emotions and like speaking, like just like he has so much more emotion and like animation behind them. And like what I'm trying to get at is like that is an interesting like probably accidental commentary about like how even in today's society a lot of straight men are like, I don't want to say like emotionally repressed or anything like that, like I don't want to get extreme, but they're definitely much more reserved in how like they express themselves like externally in big social settings or like on a public stage, so to speak.
It's like, just like a commentary on masculinity and like the different forms that it can come in. And oh my gosh, I don't know, I love the moment where like they all sit down in the room and like they're talking about something serious, and then there's no spots left for Mr. Green, so he just has to sit on the like bar cart thing,
and it collapses.
And it's like he says something serious and then it just collapses, like, and nobody like acknowledges it. It just falls and they keep going. I don't know, it's perfect. It's like, how do you not think this movie's funny? Like, I don't understand.
Right. Yeah. I'm still beefing with the two critics that were not having a
It's
great
the
time
same
with
critic.
this movie.
It was the same guy that wrote.
Oh, it's the
both of
same
these.
guy. Oh, I'm major beefing with Robert or whatever the fuck his name was.
Roger Ebert.
Lame.
His name sounds like a Muppet name. But
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love Mr. Green. He's probably my favorite, one of my favorites. I don't know.
Indeed.
I love them all. And then we have Colleen Camp, who played Yvette.
She was kind of whatever. Like, I don't think she was that funny. Like, her French accent was funny because it was like obviously fake.
Mhm.
Like, she's just putting it on, but she was like, I think it's just like I hate the way her mouth was moving.
Oh, yeah.
Like when she was doing the French, she was like, and I was like, stop. Like, no one saw that. They just heard me make horrible noises, but
I saw it.
She just kind of looked like a horse, like when it whinnies. Like that. That was like a horse face. Like when horse, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like when the horse lips do the thing. Like that's what she looked like the whole time she was talking with this fake French accent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I had no real thoughts about her, honestly. Like, sorry, Colleen.
Yeah, I mean, I thought she was fine. She's the side character, essentially. Mm-hmm. But big names auditioned to play Yvette, like Madonna.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and Demi Moore. Or Demi Moore, however you say
Demi
it.
Moore. Excuse you.
Sorry.
I don't think either of them would have been good choices. Sorry,
I think it would have been very distracting.
Agreed.
If they had been Yvette.
Mm-hmm.
We would have been like, why is she not more of a role in this? Like, why isn't she a key player? Because we know her.
It could have been a situation like Madeline Kahn, though, where they added more lines for her because it was Demi Moore or Madonna.
Yeah, true. It would have been interesting.
Agreed.
For sure. There's some tea revolved around Yvette's character. It's very loosely based, like loosely connected, but
I'm taking it as gospel.
Okay, so Jennifer Jason Leigh was also considering the role of Yvette. Mm-hmm. And Jennifer Jason Leigh, if you don't know who that is, the frigid woman from Annihilation.
Oh. Oh. She would have been a good Yvette.
Mm-hmm.
Like looks wise, like solely looks wise, I think she also would have good in a maid costume. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
so the tea. So John Landis, the guy who wrote Clue,
right?
He didn't direct it because he was directing another movie called Spies Like Us. But John Landis also directed a movie called The Twilight Zone in 1983. And in The Twilight Zone, famously, well, not in the movie, but on the set of The Twilight Zone, during the making of The Twilight Zone, Jennifer Jason Leigh's father and two children were decapitated, like killed on the set of The Twilight Zone. And it's
oh my god.
Yeah, it's a very famous, like well-known like tragedy that's happened on a film set. And Jennifer Jason Leigh opened a wrongful death suit against John Landis because basically what happened was they were filming near a helicopter or like a stunt helicopter, but the like pyrotechnics that were going off like were too close to the helicopter and something like malfunctioned and basically it just like collapsed onto them. And her father, who his name was Vic Morrow, was decapitated along with one of the other children, and then the other child was just crushed by the helicopter. It's awful.
Y'all can't see my face. I'm shook. Oh my gosh, I never heard of this.
So some tea for sure. But yeah, so she opened a wrongful death suit against John Landis and won. The outcome of the suit has never been released.
Just the fact that she won.
Yeah, but Landis was tried and acquitted for involuntary manslaughter in 1987. If she had played Yvette, she would have been in the movie created by the man allegedly responsible for her dad's death.
That is some tea. Oh my
Mm.
goodness.
I didn't know
Yeah,
any
I
of
think that would
this.
have been kind of a conflict of interest. I can't imagine that
Just
would have
a
done well.
little one, I think. Just a little bit.
Oh, that would have been an interesting like media scandal like surrounding the film. So who knows?
Yeah.
Like surrounding Clue.
Mhm.
If like she had starred in a movie, like you said, written by the man who allegedly killed her father, so to speak.
I mean, it's obviously just like a horrible accident. You know, things were probably just not. I don't know. I did not know about this. I don't know how I missed it or never heard about it until
Mhm.
researching this film. But it's just awful.
That is horrible. Oh my gosh. You know what this is reminding of? Current events with the movie Rust
Oh
and
yeah.
Alec Baldwin,
How
unfortunately.
timely.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like, damn, speaking of wrongful deaths on a movie set,
Mhm.
Alec Baldwin, everybody knows. I don't know why I'm like explaining this, but like, you know, how Alec Baldwin killed on accident. Like he shot a prop gun, which was we found out recently had a live round in it.
Yep.
Like an actual bullet, y'all, and killed a cinematographer and injured
The director.
the director. And unfortunately, the cinematographer, yes, she died. Is it Helena or Halnia?
Helena.
The name Helena.
Mhm.
Helena Hutchins. So may she rest in peace. But yeah, like all these like on-screen deaths are whack, man.
Yeah,
The
maybe we'll
end.
have to do like a really, really dark episode where we just talk about like really fucked up things that have happened on movie sets. I feel like that's really
Sure.
that's like super interesting actually. So let's do that.
Okay, well I'll hold back all of the Alec Baldwin. Cause oh man. Oh, we have
Commentary.
to do this now. Cause like, have you seen the video of him like on the side of the highway talking to the paparazzi?
Oh yeah, he gets like so
And like his
heated.
wife like keeps
Mhm.
getting like in the way. Oh my, I literally only watched like the first like 30 seconds. I could not watch the whole thing.
I only saw
was
like 10 seconds of it and I was like, oh man.
cringe city.
Okay.
People. It's horrible. Yeah, we have to do it now. Not to capitalize on the tragedy of others, but to just, you know, talk
Get
about
our
the
thoughts out because
interesting-
that's what we do.
get our thoughts out because that is what we do. You are so smart, Olivia.
Oh, thanks. Anyways, and that's some juicy tea behind Yvette's character in Clue.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that's the cast.
that is the cast.
Yeah, do you have any fun facts?
I have no fun facts. I did not look up anything about this movie. I watched it twice and I was like, my thoughts are enough.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So at the time, there was a thing called the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC, which was created in 1938 to investigate private citizens, public employees, and other organizations suspected of having ties to communism. Ooh. The committee's anti-communist investigations are also often associated with McCarthyism and the Red Scare period, which saw, you know, the creation of the blacklist and a lot of people in the film industry specifically, not just government, like losing their jobs or going to jail or, you know, having to go into hiding because of their association with socialism and communism during the time. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know a lot about McCarthyism as a whole. Like it was kind of like one of those things in US history that was just kind of like, and yeah, that happened in the 50s and then we moved on to like the civil rights, you know,
right,
era.
yeah.
We kind of didn't really talk about it too much. So I just think it's really fascinating. And you can definitely feel elements of it today still. Like it's very deeply rooted into the American psyche. But I think it's interesting context for this comedy film about a board game.
Well, I just want to know, I am curious as to why, I'm doing some quick research, why they set it in 1954. And so now I'm looking up the release date of Clue. So it was released in 1949 in the UK.
The board game?
Yeah, the board game.
Mm-hmm.
It was released. It wasn't it was released as Cluedo in the UK, and I knew it was called Cluedo in the UK.
Mhm.
And it was also released as Clue in the US. So I'm guessing it just didn't really gain much popularity. You know, like games come out the first year and you're just kind of like, what? Like you might not hear about like Apples to Apple. Like I don't know how long Apples to Apples or like Cards Against Humanity had been out before I had heard or played of it. So like you can imagine that it took a while for it to become really like widespread and popular. So my assumption is like maybe it didn't really become like the Boss Bitch board game that it is today until a few years after it was released. So that's probably why, because I am curious, like, why the hell set it in like 1954? Like, you could have just set it in modern day and it would have had the same effect. But you know, I don't know if you have that answer, but
I don't. I mean,
think...
my guess is just because it's a critique or like a commentary on that time period of like American history, because it did affect the film industry so much, and a lot of the people, you know, probably working on this film probably, you know, were affected by that in one way or another.
Right.
Also, I think it's drawing from a lot of other murder mystery films, like kind of
like Agatha Christie type shit, like a whodunit. I mean, it is a whodunit.
And a lot of those films like have tropes of, you know, people in power, like a lot of rich people coming together and blackmail and, you know, all these things. So I think it just kind of fit the aesthetic and also like fit in with the commentary about the like lavender scare, which was happening at the same time, you know, the witch hunt for communists and the witch hunt for LGBTQ people kind of happening all at the same time.
Right.
You know, so I think it just, and it's just like an interesting, it gives people a reason to be hiding things, to be blackmailed, and the aesthetic of the 40s and 50s of the like the wealthy, you know, aristocrats.
I agree. I like, and I'm not complaining about the setting. It was kind of like random, but like, not to be that bitch, but I'm gonna do it. The Cold War was still going on in 1985. Like, the conflict with Russia did not end until 1989.
Well, maybe that's another reason why, is because like it was still prevalent. You know, people were still thinking about communism, and well, you know, people never stopped thinking about communism, but like the conflict between the communist Russia and Soviet Union and the United States and spies and I don't know, like all that stuff was still like on the minds of people in the US. So
yeah, no, I definitely can see your point.
I don't know
probably why.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. These are all just my estimations. I think it's a fun visual.
Right.
So I'm not, you know, it's cool.
Cool. Burrito.
Do you have like, are you a fan of murder mysteries?
Yes. Good ones.
Yeah.
I used to, as a kid, read murder mystery like novels. Like not like Agatha Christie, like nothing like none of the adult books, but like, you know, there were kid like series that were written for kids that were not murder mysteries, but like crime mysteries. So same thing that I was really into as a kid. And so, you know, murder mysteries were always such like fun movies because you're trying to sit there and like figure out like who's the killer. And like my favorite television show of all time is Midsummer Murders. And it is a murder mystery show. It's a British murder mystery show, which makes it 1,000 times better. And one of my more recent favorites, like that was made within the last few years, was Knives Out.
Oh yeah, I love Knives Out.
Knives Out's a good movie, and that's another whodunit. It's spectacular. Like the red herrings, like you think you know, and then like something happens, you're like, no, wait, that couldn't possibly be right. And then it might have been the person you suspected all along, but like just like the excitement of being like thrown off along the way and like trying to outsmart like the people who made the film is just so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes.
I agree. Do we think that Clue is like effective at its murder mystery storyline?
I do, because I hadn't seen it in a while, so I literally, the only thing I could remember from the ending is just like all the cops like rushing in, and like the very last lines where he's like it was me in the hall with a revolver, and I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife. Like that's the only thing about the ending I remember. And that's what I liked, because I was like, damn, like who does like kill everybody? And I knew there were 3 different endings. I just couldn't remember any of the 3 endings. So yeah, that's what I like about murder mysteries. And like same with the show, like Midsummer Murders, like I'm really plugging it because it's a great fucking show and y'all should watch it. But like it's a thing I watch, like it's like my mom and my show. Like I don't watch it without my mom. Like I can't. It's like it's our thing. And I guarantee you, we have watched that entire series through like at least 4 or 5 times, the whole show, start to finish. And every time we restart the series, we're like, I don't remember shit. Like, I don't remember what happens in this episode. Like, I've probably seen every single episode 5 times, and I never remember who does it. I might like towards the end be like, oh, I think this is what happens. But like in the very beginning, you're just like, I don't fucking remember.
Yeah.
So that's just the great thing about murder mystery like movies is, you can watch them multiple times, and unless you like watch it like daily and like only focus on that movie, like the rest of the time your mind is awake and fucking doing shit, you're always thinking about that movie, you're not really gonna remember what happens.
Yeah,
at least in my mind, that's how my brain works. I like the surprise. My brain, I just black out after I watch a murder mystery.
Well, that's good. That's a lucky thing that you have going on there.
Oh yeah. I'm a great test audience for like murder mystery movies. Like you can make me watch it 6 times and I will not remember what happened.
So you would have loved the 3 separate endings being released. Like each time you'd be like, I don't remember this.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh shit. I knew it.
But yeah, so you
like,
think
no,
that
this is the new released ending.
You think that the each of the endings like makes a satisfying murder mystery?
In 1985, perhaps not. The final ending, like the very last one, yes, that is the most satisfying ending, and that's why it's the real ending. But like the other 2 where it's just Miss Scarlet and then it's just Mrs. Peacock, maybe not so much, because both of their rationales were like not as strong as like everybody killing off one person for a specific reason.
Yeah, like 6 people in like one night is kind of a lot for like
that's kind of a big jump from like, if you're most people do murder light, you know what I mean, like they kill one person and then they're like, I'm good.
Yeah,
maybe 2 people because they gotta kill the witness or whatever, but like 6 in a night for like very, very loose reasons, less believable, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think it works. I don't think it's trying to be like, I don't think it's trying to be like an Agatha Christie, super.
It's very much like if it's anything like an Agatha Christie movie, it's Murder on the Orient Express. Because like, spoiler alert, even though that movie is like 60 years old,
they all did it.
No, they did. They all did it. They literally line up and each of them stab him once, because he's stabbed like 10 times with like 4 different like knives or so, like 4 different weapons. It's so fucking funny.
I saw the new one. It was so bad, but
there's a new one. I just watched like the really old version.
No, the new one.
Oh damn. Well, spoiler alert, if it's anything like the OG Murder on the Orient Express, it is everyone does it.
Oh no, this one it's everyone too. And
okay.
It's awful. But yeah, I don't know what I was saying. I think Clue did it. Basically my point was, it's not trying to be super serious. It's trying to be kind of both a parody and just a fun murder mystery. I don't really care if it makes sense or not, to be honest. Like if
it makes enough sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's clever enough to keep me entertained throughout the whole thing. And at the end, I don't leave feeling like cheated,
Right.
So,
Like you got what you paid for,
mhm.
so to speak.
I guess, do you have any last thoughts on Clue before I ask you what your top 5 Tim Curry movies are?
Oh damn. You're gonna put me on the spot and ask me my top 5 Tim Curry movies? That's horrendous.
I mean, we're not going to do another Tim Curry movie for a while, so I figured we need to have the conversation now.
Oh, I
Or we
don't know.
decide if we're going to continue the podcast.
Oh, yeah, right.
Actually, before we do that, give you more time to think of your top 5.
Thank you. 'Cause I have
Do
to
you have
some
any like
Googling.
favorite quotes, since this movie is like probably one of the most quotable movies of all time? Do you have any favorite quotes?
Oh yeah. Of course, flames on the side of my face.
Mhm.
Like that's been a running joke, like of us and our of Olivia and our friends, like for ages. It's something that oh, it's the bit with the cop where it's like there's nothing illegal going on here, and he's like, what? Oh my god, like that seems just so fucking funny.
I didn't know it was that free.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know it was that free. It's like
It's a free country. Oh, I didn't know it was
so
that
funny.
free.
There's just so many ones like that miss that, like it's like the banter between like two characters, and it's like it happens so fast you can't like necessarily remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like
just
1 plus 2 plus 1
also
plus 1.
Oh yeah, that bit's really funny. That part was like probably the best part of Miss Scarlet's like ending, where they're like 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1, and then it's just so fucking dumb. What about you?
There's so many. I love when Colonel Mustard asks Miss White, how many husbands have you had? And she goes, mine or other women's. The illusionist line, the like he wasn't a very good illusionist line.
Oh, that's a good one.
He took advantage of information he had and sold it for a profit. What's more American than that?
Oh yeah. I think my favorite like line that they keep bringing up is communism is just a red herring. Like they say it like in all 3 endings. So good.
The socialism line, like her friends were socialists and he's like starts weeping, is just like, I don't know. I think that has to be number 1 for me.
It's a good one.
I'm trying to think of like, I had to stop her from screaming.
It really is one where you just like, there's like a couple, but like the rest of the time it's very fast-paced humor. But you get in the moment, you're like, haha, I am smart. I keep up with humor.
All right. So do you have any final thoughts on Clue?
Great movie. Just great fall film. Love it. Love Tim Curry. Love Madeline Kahn. May she rest in peace. All good things. All good vibes. No thoughts, just vibes. The end.
I thought you were gonna say love Tim Curry, also rest in peace.
Oh my god. Okay, so our mutual friend Ben, he sent me a Snapchat the other day of him watching Clue. I did not tell him we were watching Clue. And I was like, oh my god, great movie, love Clue. Like I didn't bother mentioning like that we were recording this. And he sends back a hashtag. He sends back a message, hashtag missing Tim. And I was like, I like really panicked for a second.
No.
I was like, oh my god, did Tim Curry die? I really feel like I would wake up with like a piece of my heart like on fire.
No, I'm gonna call out of work when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Like I need to take a personal day. I need to take a personal week. How much bereavement time do I get?
Anyways.
It was right before I watched Clue for the second time, and I was like, oh my god, did Tim Curry die? It was like it was a heart-stopping moment for sure.
Anyways, we don't need to say Tim Curry rest in peace quite yet. He's still alive.
Thank God.
I concur everything you said. It's a delightful film, a joyous film, a very funny film, despite what the critics said and still say. I don't understand. These people just don't have senses of humor, I guess. All the performances are fantastic, and any criticisms that we might have pale in comparison to the fun that At least I have when I watch it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. All right, Madeline. So what are your top 5 Tim Curry performances?
So number 1 is, of course, actually, I'm going to go number 5 to number 1.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm going to go number 1 to number 5. Sorry,
okay.
I'm going to go
okay.
in. I'm going to go.
I have
order, 'cause
whiplash.
it's like, so did I. My brain was like, stop. Focus, woman.
All right,
Number
so we're doing
one,
number
of course.
1 to number 5.
We're doing 1 to 5 now. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I got excited. I was like, let me do something different. Anyway, number 1, of course, is Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror. Just his best film. Like his best, like I feel like he put all of his heart and soul into that role because he played it on stage, and just A++++++. Second, of course, is now going to be Wadsworth from Clue. Cannot compete with Wadsworth. Third, I'm gonna say Pennywise, just because like he is the OG Pennywise. I had to double check that he was Pennywise. Like that's why I was doing some Googling. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Tim Curry, but let me triple check. And like it broadens his range just a little bit, that he can be like kind of a creepy character. Like none of the characters he does are like exclusively creepy. Like they're kind of weird, but like none of them are like horror actually. So like he expands. 4 is when he's in the Muppets.
Oh, Treasure Island.
Treasure Island. Yeah. He's like Long John Silver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Long John Silver. And number 5, I'm gonna kind of cheat and say, instead of a movie, I'm gonna say Nigel Thornberry from the Thornberries.
Nice.
Wild Thornberries. Because I've seen Annie, and he's good in Annie. Like he's great in everything he does. And then he's in this other movie called Legend that I saw once when I was like a kid, and he's like in all this makeup, so it's like he's basically unrecognizable.
He was in Home Alone 2.
Huh?
He was in Home Alone 2.
Yeah, that's right. He was in Home Alone 2. But like Nigel Thornberry just steals my heart because he's just like so fucking weird and dumb, and I love him so much. But he's also a nature expert. I love nature.
I think my list is almost exactly the same, but instead of Nigel Thornberry, I'm doing Annie. Because that's how that's literally how I know Tim Curry. Like that's the first movie that I ever saw with him.
Oh, really?
So, so that was like my introduction. So I feel like I have to include it. You know,
fair enough.
Because it's just sentimental to me.
I think the first movie I saw him in was Muppets Treasure Island. You
well,
know, you're a kid when you see it.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one to be introduced to him.
Yeah.
So number 1, Frankenfurter, Rocky Horror. Number 2, Wadsworth and Clue. Number 3, Pennywise. Number 4, Muppet Treasure Island, and number 5, Rooster and Annie. That's my official Tim Curry ranking.
Curry top 5. See, I was gonna be spicy and be like 5 to 1, even though 1 is obvious. But then I was like, no, I want to like shock people and say a TV show instead of a movie. So that's why I did the whiplash. So.
Oh, right. Well, I need shocked.
To explain myself.
I was quite shocked.
You were thrown from your seat, shook the house down.
I had to restart my Zoom.
She hung up because she was so like offended.
Yeah.
Yay.
Right. Well, I think that was a good discussion on Clue. What do you think?
We really went in. We really popped off on Clue, y'all.
We did. We're back, y'all. We're finally like getting our shit together.
We're finally back.
You know, I can't guarantee that we won't have some messy episodes in the future, but I think we're getting our groove back.
Yay.
All right. So any final thoughts before we go?
Just that we're fantastic, and we're gonna be putting out some more spicy content for you thirsty boys to enjoy.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to our other episodes on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, anytime, anywhere. And You can follow us on Instagram at Another Picture Show. If you want to just, send us a DM and tell us how your day is going, or give us some suggestions for movies that you think you'd like to hear our opinions on, or movies that you think we haven't seen and we should see.
And if you don't like it, keep your thoughts to yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to like us, but frankly, I don't care. So keep it to yourself.
Frankly, oh, he says, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. That was brilliant.
Oh, true. Yes, a lot of good references to older movies.
Amen.
All right, so with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Madeline, I love you. Thank you as always for speaking with me.
Well, you only let me out of the closet once a week to record,
right.
and then I have to go back in. So
yeah.
It's a pleasure.
All right. I will see you next time.
Don't put me back in.
Bye.
Oh.